Okay, mama, I want you to imagine you are doing everything right. You had skin to skin right away after birth. You got that first latch. It was deep and comfortable, and now your milk is coming in and you are latching your baby on demand, but something's just not working. You are in pain. Your baby is fussing, doesn't want to open her mouth. She doesn't want to stay latched. It doesn't matter what position you try, you do the football hold just like the nurses showed you. You use all the pillows to try and get a good cross cradle or cradle position, and your baby is just miserable. You are just miserable. You're fighting against each other. It feels like you are working against each other. It feels like you just can't figure it out. And the only answer anybody has for you is, it's normal. It'll get better. This is just what you have to deal with. This is just part of breastfeeding. Does that sound familiar? Hey, Mama Bear. Welcome to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Do you dream of bonding with your baby through exclusive breastfeeding, but worry about breastfeeding pain or low milk supply? Maybe you're struggling with breastfeeding and no one seems to have any answers. I'm Jamie, doula, international board certified lactation consultant, and mom of 5, and I have been where you are. After working through painful latches, milk supply worries, and postpartum depression, and supporting countless mothers through their breastfeeding journeys for over 8 years, I'm here to tell you breastfeeding doesn't have to be perfect to be positive. Each week, I'll share breastfeeding tips to help you prevent and overcome unexpected breastfeeding challenges so you can actually enjoy bonding with your baby. If you are ready to shut out the toxic whispers of the world, embrace your God-given intuition, and release your inner fierce mama bear, grab some coffee or your favorite herbal tea and let's dive in. If this sounds familiar and these are some of the symptoms you're experiencing, we're going to dive into some of the signs of tongue tie, the ones that are often overlooked, missed, and dismissed, even when your intuition is screaming at you. But before we get started, I wanted to invite you to my free Secrets to a First Latch Without Pain online breastfeeding course. This is an online breastfeeding class that is going to help you bust breastfeeding myths from the start so that you can avoid falling prey to bad advice. It's going to help you create a plan for breastfeeding success. And I'm going to teach you my go-to latch technique that has helped hundreds of mothers transform their latch from difficult, tricky, and painful to comfortable, easy, and natural in just a few minutes. If you want to jump inside of this free class, check out littlebearlactation.com/secrets, where you can come in, get your questions answered, jump in the group, introduce yourself, and start connecting to get answers to your breastfeeding questions. I also wanted to remind you that if you have any questions you would like featured on a future episode, you can jump onto my website, littlebearlactation.com/breastfeeding-podcast, or you can click the link in the show notes and you can actually submit a voice message to have your question featured on an upcoming Q&A episode of the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Now let's dive into today's episode talking about tongue ties and symptoms of tongue ties. So there's a lot of conversation around pain with breastfeeding, and a lot of times you're going to be told it's normal. But how do we know when it's a sign of a bigger problem? A tongue tie is very controversial right now. Tongue tie is one of those things that a lot of people just assume all pain means there's a tongue tie. So some people will just jump to tongue tie and not do a truly thorough assessment. A lot of times, the opposite is true, where signs and symptoms of tongue tie are just overlooked and dismissed and brushed off as normal, even though your intuition is screaming at you and there doesn't seem to be any other answer. Tongue tie does cause more than just breastfeeding issues. I want that to be really, really clear from the start. These problems are not just breastfeeding problems. There can be bottle feeding problems. It can affect oral development. The orofacial, craniofacial development is impacted by your tongue function. So if your tongue is not functioning right for breastfeeding, it's not functioning right for breathing, sleeping, anything else. So it can cause deviations in how the palate forms, in how your sinuses form, in how the dental arches form. This can look like issues later down the road with needing braces and sleep apnea, speech issues. It can even cause digestion issues. It can cause reflux. There are so many conditions and symptoms of tongue tie that are so frequently brushed off as either a diagnosis in themselves when they are actually a symptom of a deeper problem, or they're brushed off as just how things are. It's just how things are. And that's not always true. So we're going to kind of dive into today what symptoms we see of tongue tie in breastfed babies. They can let us know, hey, maybe something's not right here. A lot of times moms are gaslit into believing that this is just normal newborn behavior. Babies just cry a lot. Breastfeeding's supposed to hurt. I just really want to set the message right now. If your intuition is screaming at you that something is not right and nobody has answers, keep pushing, keep peeling it back. You are not broken. You are not crazy. You are not just a first-time mom. You are not just an anxious mom. Your intuition is worth listening to. I also do want to be clear that some of the symptoms we're going to list out today do not automatically mean your baby has a tongue tie. However, they are what we typically see when a baby has a tongue tie. So not every baby with these symptoms will have a tongue tie, but most babies with a tongue tie will show some of these symptoms, if that makes sense. So I don't want you to hear these and go running off saying, my baby has a tongue tie. Jamie said so. I didn't say that. I said that these symptoms are frequent with tongue ties. If you think that a tongue tie could be a problem, you can hop into my Latching with Confidence class to get an even deeper breakdown of identifying your baby's specific oral function challenges, where you get a free tongue tie guide to kind of go through, and you can hop into a free live group call and get your questions answered there, and maybe we can dig into it deeper. You can also book a private one-on-one virtual consult where we can determine what your baby's oral function difficulties are and create a customized plan for treating that and managing that. But I don't want you to walk away from this episode assuming your baby automatically has a tongue tie, but knowing that, if these things are lining up, it's probably a sign that we need to dig deeper. And I want you to feel empowered and inspired to advocate for yourself and advocate for your baby. So what are some of the symptoms that we see in babies with tongue tie? One of the main symptoms we see in a tongue-tied baby is a shallow latch. So what does a shallow latch mean? What does that look like? Okay, so first of all, it's going to look like it's not that big, wide open mouth that has the areola drawn in. Sometimes, though, your baby can achieve that kind of latch, but it's short-lived. It doesn't stay that way. Or they can get a deep latch, but as they're feeding, they start slipping off the nipple. They're popping off. They're having difficulty staying latched. Maybe milk is dribbling from the corner of the mouth. They are gagging and choking and coughing at the breast. They just can't handle that letdown no matter what. You feel like you are drowning them. There are clicking noises when they're nursing. Maybe they're sucking a lot, but they're not swallowing. You might see that they have really poor weight gain despite frequent feeds. And the first thing you're going to think is, oh, my supply is bad. And that's where we get into the mom symptoms, right? If your baby is not removing milk, your body's not making milk. Therefore, your baby's not getting enough milk because they can't extract the milk. So then your body stops making enough milk. And so, yeah, there might be a supply issue, but it could also be baby not being capable of creating the demand that they need to create. You might notice that your baby is falling asleep too quickly at the breast and wakes up starving. They're never content between feedings. Maybe you have tried giving them a bottle to give yourself a break, and they still don't seem to be able to feed with the bottle well. They might have lip blisters, and this is from excessive friction because they are actually using their lips to hold onto the breast instead of their tongue. They're supposed to use their tongue to grip onto the breast, but if they have to use their lips, they are going to end up with lip blisters. If the lips cannot be in a neutral position or flared, opening the mouth wraps the lips around because they have a lip tie or buccal ties as well. This can also cause excess friction and lip blisters. Some of the symptoms we see in mom is nipple pain. We'll see damage that is not improving with position changes. There seems to be nothing we can do to get this nipple pain to improve. Sometimes it is just that you are in excruciating pain and you might not even see cuts and blisters and blood, but it feels like you've got a million paper cuts. It feels like sandpaper. Other times it is obvious gashes and blisters and wounds that will not heal. Sometimes you try a nipple shield and still feel like there's pain. You feel like your baby's chomping on your breast versus suckling. You have constant clogged ducts and mastitis because the baby's not removing enough milk. You feel like you don't have a strong milk supply. Conversely, some moms don't just have low milk supply issues. Sometimes your baby is compensating for their feeding issues by nursing so frequently that they're still gaining weight. They're still demanding milk. In fact, they're demanding so much milk that your body makes too much. And now you have oversupply, which is making those clogged ducts and mastitis worse because the baby's still having a hard time getting it out. He's just doing it a lot. So he's doing okay, but your body is like in overdrive. You might feel like you are trapped in endless feeding sessions. It takes 45 minutes for your baby to nurse because you're constantly having to wake her up, put her back on the breast. She's popping off, getting fussy. It's like a constant battle. She finally falls asleep. You think she's finally full, and within an hour, she's awake screaming, demanding more feeding. This is not normal. Cluster feeding is normal, frequent feeding is normal, but feeling like you are feeding around the clock, a baby who is never satisfied, doesn't stay awake long enough to get a full feed, and it's a constant battle for the entire feeding, that is not normal. This can leave you feeling broken. It can leave you feeling like you're doing something wrong. It can leave you feeling like, why can't I figure this out? You can feel hopeless. And the most overlooked symptom of tongue tie and feeding issues is that mom's intuition is screaming. It's screaming and everybody's ignoring it. So what happens if you are experiencing these symptoms? What do you do? What do you do if you are experiencing these symptoms and you try a nipple shield, you try some basic position changes and it doesn't work? What do you do then? Going to your pediatrician probably is not going to be very helpful. Some people will say go to a pediatrician, go to an ENT, go to a pediatric dentist. What I want you to do is actually work with somebody who is skilled and trained in doing oral function evaluations within the context of breastfeeding. Typically, this is going to be an IBCLC who has oral function training. IBCLCs cannot diagnose tongue ties, and we're going to talk about this more in the next section. But what we want to do is determine what the issue is. Is this a structural issue with their tongue? Is this a function issue? Is it a nervous system issue? Is it something else? Is it a combination of issues? We can't always go straight to tongue tie because when we go straight to tongue tie and just rush to do a release, we are maybe fixing one part of the problem, but we're not fixing the whole problem. We need to make sure that we're looking at every part of feeding to see how it's all coming together to understand what is fully going on. So if you are struggling with pain and you have tried some simple fixes, maybe you hopped inside of the free secrets class and learned about my latch technique that helps get a deeper latch, and you're like, that's a little bit better, but my baby is still clicking. My baby is still struggling to stay attached at the breast. My baby is still not opening her mouth wide enough for this technique to work. Hop inside of Latching with Confidence because Latching with Confidence is going to go deeper into understanding each stage of latching, how each part of your baby's latch has to work together for comfortable feeding. And then it walks you through the exact steps to take when that's not working. It talks about natural healing methods for sore nipples. It talks about using a nipple shield correctly and incorrectly. It talks about weaning off of a nipple shield. We go into different kinds of latching support when your baby is struggling to stay attached and you just don't know what to do. Also, as a free bonus, you will get access to my 29-page tongue tie guide that will teach you everything you need to know to advocate for your baby if you suspect they have a tongue tie. Remember, you cannot diagnose purely off one symptom. You cannot diagnose purely off of a cluster of symptoms without looking at a full picture, but you can start ruling things out. You can start feeling educated and start asking the right questions. If you feel like you need additional support, when you join Latching with Confidence, you actually get a free month of Confident Mama Bear Society membership, which means you can hop on some group calls with me, get your questions answered. And if you feel like you need more specialized guidance and support, I do offer virtual lactation consults where I can walk you through how to do an examination, how to start improving your baby's oral function based off their specific needs and where they are having their specific challenges, and then create a plan for treatment. We coordinate an exact plan and an exact step-by-step process to get you where you need to be. And where you need to be is enjoying painless breastfeeding, sitting down to feed your baby and knowing that you are giving them the best, that you are working with their design, that you are trusting your instincts, and that you are able to provide your baby milk without a battle. That's what you want. And you can have that. You can have that. If this episode made you feel seen, Mama, you are not alone. You do not have to struggle in silence. Join me inside of Secrets to a First Latch Without Pain. And if you need to dive deeper, join me inside of Latching with Confidence, where I will help you get answers to your questions. We will find solutions, and you can start enjoying breastfeeding. All right, Mama Bear, that is a wrap for today. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or a little more prepared for breastfeeding, can I ask you a quick favor? Go ahead and leave me a review. It helps other moms find this podcast and join us in this amazing community of fierce and confident Mama Bears. And hey, if you know a friend who could use some encouragement or real talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all things motherhood, share this episode with her. You've got this, Mama Bear. Trust your instincts, stay fierce, and I'll catch you in the next episode.